Hey Zach, Byron Ember here, buddy. How are you? Going through your videos, I think I have an angle that I want to explain here. Our overall objective here, as we chatted about before, is for you to develop the ability to throw a curveball for a strike or in the zone, out of the zone when you want to. And just like for anybody, the ability to throw this curveball for a strike oftentimes has to come with understanding the pitch itself. We have to understand why it's effective, why it breaks. We have to understand how to throw it out of the zone, in the zone, and just a complete, real understanding of all the elements regarding the curveball. So let's get to it. What I want to begin and talk about here, Zach, is the benefit that a good curveball has to a power pitcher's fastball. There was always a saying that a pitcher's fastball is only as good as his breaking ball. And one of the reasons that the curveball is so effective for power pitchers is that we have a pitch that has vertical rotation, we'll talk about that here in a moment, that can break from his shoulder down to his knee in just a matter of feet. I'm going to show you a couple right here. Here you've got Justin Verlander, 6'6" right-hander fastball, anywhere between 97 to 102, and with just a paralyzing breaking ball, top to bottom, and gets a lot of swing and miss because of the awareness of the fastball. Josh Beckett here is another one, really good curveball, 12-6 action, kind of mixed in a slurve later on in his career. And then you've got Clayton Kershaw, who in my opinion has one of the best curveballs I've ever seen. And as you can see, he does have an arc to his breaking ball once he throws it for a strike. But the ones that he bounces in front of home plate have more of a fastball trajectory than anything else. But probably the best example of a power pitcher using his curveball and showing the real effect that it has on even some of the best hitters is the night that Kerry Wood struck out 20. He's probably throwing anywhere between 95 and 99 this night, but hitters are having to take fastballs because they had anticipated the curveball, and then they're taking bad swings on the curveball because they anticipated the fastball. Later on, they start taking pitches altogether because they're guessing wrong. This is the real effect of a curveball because it makes the fastball appear to be harder than what it really is. And for you, Zach, you've already displayed a very similar type of dominance even without the breaking ball. For example, in this at bat, it was "Thank you for coming out, good night." Imagine the effect you would have if there was a breaking ball you could control when you wanted to. When people talk about really good curveballs, obviously they're referring to the 12-6 curveball that obviously breaks from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The piece that we're often missing when talking about it is the rotation being 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. As you watch Clayton Kershaw here from the umpire's angle, you can see that his hand is directly on top of the baseball, and not only is the baseball going straight down, but the baseball is breaking in the same direction of its rotation. If we slow you down in one of your breaking balls here, you can see that as you come through the throwing lane, you're not directly on top of the baseball. Your hand makes the letter U instead of the letter C. This U causes a rotation to be horizontal more so than vertical, basically creating a 9-3 rotation more so than the 12-6 rotation. If we look at the forces that act upon a baseball when throwing a curveball with topspin or 12-6 rotation, you'll see that you'll have velocity going forward, drag in the back, Magnus force, and gravity pushing down on the baseball, causing it to break. I can't create that same downhill plane that I would with a 12-6 breaking ball if I'm getting around it. So we have the spin direction going horizontal, the arm path going down and across, and therefore the movement pattern or the break of the baseball has to go down and into a lefty. If this was a slider, it wouldn't be much of an issue, but considering this is a curveball, it does present a problem because the baseball does not change planes as well. As a result, instead of getting a trajectory from the top of the zone to the bottom of the zone, we create a trajectory that's a little bit like this. The first question we have to ask ourselves is, what does a curveball strike look like? Well, A curveball thrown at 75 miles an hour has a spin rate at about 2,200 RPMs and sometimes higher. Now, due to gravity, the pitch breaks at about 4.2 feet, and then due to the spin of the ball, it breaks at about 1.5 feet, causing a total break or vertical drop of 5.7 feet. Now, if you're anything like me or like a lot of pitchers, the minute we start bouncing curveballs, we start throwing them too high. Or the minute we throw them too high or we hang them, we then start bouncing them. If you look at the trajectory of a curveball above the zone, you'll see how high it starts in this big loop. A curveball that's just short of home plate is traveling straight downhill out of my hand and doesn't get to home plate really. A curveball strike has a more even trajectory going downhill, and the curveball that's in the zone, out of the zone, typically a 2-strike breaking ball, is a lot like that as well. The mistake that we make as pitchers is that we're trying to make the adjustment based on the trajectory instead of the release point. So here's the million-dollar question. Where do I release the baseball to throw the curveball for a strike? Like most pitchers, you release your fastball when your hand gets to your foot. As you can see some pictures here, guys release the fastball right at their front foot regardless of the arm angle they're throwing from. But where the front foot lands is based on the stride length. The average stride length of a pitcher is about 87% of his body height. Now I'm guessing that you're about 6 foot, which is 72 inches. 87% of that is 62.64 inches. So you roughly have about a 5'2" stride length. We don't want you to release the curveball when your hand gets to your foot, but when your elbow gets to your foot. If I'm that far out front, Zach, when I throw my curveball, meaning my elbow over my foot, the baseball comes out of my hand more on a line drive, more so than an arc. If we get our knuckles facing the catcher upon release, instead of getting around the baseball, and driving the hammer, quote unquote, taking the hammer to the nail that's on the wall versus trying to hammer the nail on the table, this ball stays on a flat surface traveling at the same or relatively the same trajectory as a fastball. I'm not driving my hand down enough to make the ball fall short. I'm not taking my hand up high enough to make it go above the strike zone. I'm simply driving my hand in a straight line through the strike zone. Our adjustments to the breaking ball consistency are simple. We're simply going to take our knuckles and point them to the catcher, which gets us on top of the baseball. And then we're going to take our elbow to our toe and throw this ball on a straight line. By doing those things, the breaking ball strikes are more consistent, therefore hitting the fastball becomes even more difficult.